Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. This is Luisa Bravo from the Public Space Academy, and welcome to our Keynote Lecture Series. Today we are very proud to host Professor Carlos Moreno. But before we introduce Carlos, I would like to introduce my colleague, Via Viese, who will be with us during this keynote lecture and will be moderating the Q&A session at the end of the lecture. Hello, Via.
Hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to this exciting event. And yes, so please write your questions in the chat on whichever platform you are, and we will have a little Q&A at the end of the lecture. Enjoy.
Thank you, Via. So now, since we have announced this lecture already 2 weeks ago through our social media channels and our newsletter, I would like to go straight to introduce our keynote lecturer today, Professor Carlos Moreno, the Scientific Director of the Research Lab Entrepreneurship Territory Innovation at Université Paris, Panthéon-Sorbonne in France. He is a distinguished Franco-Colombian urban planner and professor, and is best known for the pioneering 15-minute city concept, which promotes sustainable human-centric urban living. And this concept has been widely adopted by mayors and international organizations working towards more sustainable cities around the world, and has since become a global movement. In Paris, his ideas have been embraced by the city's mayor, Anne Hidalgo, contributing to the city's transformation. He is the recipient of many prestigious grants and awards like the OBELAward in 2021, the UN Habitat Scroll of Honor in 2022, and the Global Leadership Award for Sustainable Development from the Global Forum on Human Settlements in 2024. Professor Moreno actively contributes to the global discourse on urban and territorial transformation, focusing on creating livable cities that prioritize residents' well-being. His latest book in English is titled The 15-Minute City, a solution to saving our time and our planet. So I'm very glad now to welcome Professor Carlos Moreno. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, for this kind of introduction. A great pleasure for me to take part in this educational program of the City Space Architecture. Congrats, Luisa, for this action. I am totally aware that it is very important to be committed for offering this kind of educational programs for the young people around the world. And this is really a pleasure for me to deliver this lecture today. I will share my screen.
Thank you.
Maybe you will have in a few seconds my screen. I'm not totally sure this is the case. I think that it's okay now.
Yes.
Have you? Okay. Thank you so much. I have exactly 40 minutes.
Yes.
For having 20 minutes for a discussion. We could discuss for a lot of time, several hours on this concept, but we need to be precise today. How proximity could change our urban life. This is the sense of this concept. Of course, Lisa said, thank you for that, the 15-minute city has become a really very popular worldwide concept. But the first point, the less important item in the 15-minute city is the number of minutes. Please, no matter 10 minutes, 50 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, this is not the problem. The question is to have a happy polycentric city, a happy proximity, to provide a lot of different services in shorter distances in an interconnected city for rejuvenating our neighborhood. Proximity is not only distances. Proximity, this is an ecosystem. This is an urban local ecosystem for regenerating our cities in the 21st century. This is the timeline of the emergence of this concept. I'm neither architect nor urbanist, even if I have received a lot of awards as architect and urbanist, but this is not the case. I am even appointed by the International Academy of Architecture. In reality, my first discipline is mathematics and computer science. I was committed for developing the smart city concept, where I was one of pioneers of this way for cities. In 2010, the Professor Mohamed Yunus, the Nobel Prize, became after a great friend, wrote a book, published a world of triple zero: zero carbon, zero poverty, zero exclusion. And in fact, I understood at this moment that the smart city is, in fact, a wrong way, because it is impossible to change radically our cities in face with the triple challenge: ecological, economic, and social, only with technology. Even if we have the really powerful technologies, I understood that technologies is not a target itself. This is a power leverage, but the most important point is to develop a city with a high quality of life, based in particular in a massive possibility for accessing anytime, anywhere to different services. In 2015, 10 years ago, the city of Paris has hosted the COP21, excuse me, and the mayor of Paris and Hidalgo hosted the summit 1,000 mayors for climate. And I evoked that if we wanted to transform our cities in order to fight, to resist to climate change, this is not enough to take the measure, in particular the technical measure, but we need to address the climate issues by a radical change of our urban life. And in this way, we need to impact our mindset for changing our lifestyle, to impact the economic business model of cities, and to evoke the social impact, in particular by the gentrification, segmentation, zonification process in cities. This was the origin of this concept in 2016. I experienced it for 3 years, this concept in Paris, in the area that will be host the Olympic Games 10 years after. Our success in this area was a real concrete transformation, and the mayor of Paris has decided to adopt, after these experiences, this concept in 2019 as the backbone for her electoral campaign in 2020, for proposing the 50-minute city as the backbone of the new urban policy for her new mandature. And Hidalgo, in fact, has become, with the 50-minute city, the epicenter of this global movement. In March 2020, we had the COVID-19 pandemic crisis in Europe. In Italy, Milan was the epicenter of the COVID-19, and the mayor of Milano, Giuseppe Sala, in May 2020, has adopted this concept as well for developing this proximity. And in July, during the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, the C40 cities, the global network of metropolises for fighting against climate change, has adopted as well this concept. After this date, July 2020, of course, with the C40 cities, we have spread this concept worldwide. In the thought of the professor, right, my friend Mohamed Yunus, this 15 mini city concept, in fact, has offered 3 scientific pillars for transforming our cities. A new rhythm of the city for having a new chrono-urbanism. Instead of to have these giant metronome cities, early in the morning, at home from the office, late in the evening from the office at home, we needed to transform the rhythm of the city for having a new work style. The second point, the chronotopia, for breaking out with a lot of decades of zonification, just one places for one activity. I have proposed to develop the multi-purpose functions, the multi-uses of buildings. One place, multiple uses, for reducing the number of buildings, for offering a more intensive uses, and for reducing the compulsory journeys. The third topic is today topophilia. The sense of belonging in a community, my neighborhood, the sense of belonging for living in a street, in a block, for developing this affect, for having the love of a place. These are the 3 essential pillars when I proposed the 50-minute city. Anne Hidalgo proposed this project for Parisian. She won the election in 2020 in June, and she had immediately started the deployment of this concept in Paris. One of the most well-known is the Street for Kids. The Street for Kids is, in fact, to transform the street in front of a school for banning cars and to transform these streets into the mini park with a playground, vegetation, trees, bench equipments for parents and grandparents. And Hidalgo has deployed since 2021 this project for transforming radically Paris in this way. Resilient against climate change, a more local economical development, revigorate our neighborhood, our district, for having a more relevant social impact. Recently, 3 days ago, Parisians have voted for approving the new 500 garden streets. We have today 200 streets for kids in front of schools. And now, after winning 66% of voters approved this project, we will continue to create for a new sequence of 500 garden streets. Paris hosted the Olympic Games the last summer, and this was evident worldwide, the radical transformation of Paris. For the first time, the city of Paris, a city for the modern Olympic Games, hosted the competition, not in the special building or installations related to a competition. No, the way in Paris was to host competitions in the city, in the different distributed places. And after finishing the Olympic Games, to continue to transform the different public spaces. We had the competitions just in the different places, the Eiffel Tower, the Seine River, Montmartre, Concorde, etc. The 50-minute city is deployed in the city of Paris. Paris is a small city, 120 square kilometers for 2.2 billion of inhabitants. And we have as well in Paris, the Ile-de-France region, 10 million of inhabitants, the big region. The president of the Ile-de-France region, Madame Valérie Pécresse, has announced in July 2023 the strategic program for the Ile-de-France region, the 20-minute Ile-de-France region from 2023 until 2040. This is really relevant to underline because we have a lot of different implementation of this concept, the 50-minute city in Paris, the 20-minute in Ile-de-France region, the 10-minute city in Utrecht, the 20-minute neighborhood in Australia, the 5-minute city in Copenhagen, the vital neighborhood, etc. We have a lot of different names. The important, in fact, is to consider proximity in a polycentric city as a new paradigm, regardless of the size of density of cities on territories. We could deploy this concept in a big region, and we could deploy this concept in a small town, even in a rurality. We have developed a powerful alliance on this concept with UN Habitat, UCLG, the oldest international organization of mayors, and my chair in my lab at AE Labs in Paris. We have created the Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximity for developing this way. In Paris, in the next 4th and 5th September, we will host the first international conference on sustainable proximity for exchanging on these different projects around the world. The real impact, in fact, is with a polycentric proximity to reconcile sustainability and quality of life. For a long time, we have opposed sustainability for reducing our CO2 footprints, for developing more digitalization, and the other hand, to oppose with the economic development. And we need, in fact, to reconcile economic development with sustainability. And in this way, our concept has this tremendous advantage for developing a more vibrant local economy, shorter circuits, to use local raw materials, to have more local employment, to regenerate as well the local skills by training, educational program, etc. We have, with the proximity, with this polycentric proximity, under the different nicknames, this possibility for regenerating more commitment for a sustainable city by the reduction of our CO2 footprint, given that the reduction of the role of individual cars, to regenerate streets by more vegetation, trees, and to have more walkability and bikeability, and at the same time, to foster a more vibrant local economy, local shops, local commerce, etc. This is the sense of this vision. We have developed a methodology with the scientific mathematics, computer science tools, and at the same time, a lot of different new tools for developing the empowerment of citizens in order to take part in this transformation. We have today a lot of different implementation around the world. In Europe, for the European audience, the European Union has launched the strategic program Driving Urban Transitions. One of the items is the 15-minute city transition pathway. one of the three items. We have today, each year, a call for proposals. This is the fourth year of this call for proposals, and the next October, the European Union launched the fifth program for that. Please, you could download this book in April 2024, mapping of 15 minute city practices. You could read more than 100 projects developed in Europe. I received a lot of awards in urbanism and architecture, but my favorite award is this one, because the Scroll of Honor by UN Habitat in 2022 is not an award for Carlos Moreno. This is an award for the 15-minute city global initiative. This is not my personal award. This is the award of the all and entirely worldwide community committed for developing this transformation, a new common global narrative, a new common mobilization on sustainable urban development, the implementation of the new urban agenda for regenerating our cities in this triple convergence, ecology, economy, and social positive impacts based on a polycentric proximity. Carlos Moreno wasn't in a bathroom for saying, Eureka, I find the 15-minute city. No, this is a long process for more than 1 century of a lot of different thinkers and doers that have developed an intensive commitment, reflection, and action for transforming our cities. At the end of the 19th century, with the Garden City by OBELAward, at the beginning of the 20th century by Giorgio Simmel, the German sociologist, until recently, the contemporary Danish urbanist Jan Gehl, and at the center of this galaxy, the unforgettable Jane Jacobs, when she coined in the 70s the living city concept. In fact, we had for a long time a lot of livable cities. And the emergence of the massive individual cars was at the origin of this transformation of our cities. We have developed with my team, with my ETI labs, a methodology. We have published 4 different white papers. The last one is the 15-minute city model with the approach, with the indicator for measuring quality of life in urban settings. This is the resume of the 15-minute city, to improve the quality of life in a polycentric city for regenerating our cities in this ecological, economical, social way for having a happy proximity. We have today a lot of cities committed in this way. Even if we have a lot of different implementation of this concept, the common point for our challenges, in fact, has the same starting point: climate change. Climate change is today a reality. This is no more a climate change. This is a climate emergency. And we need to be aware, everywhere, that climate change today, the increase, the acceleration of climate change is totally intertwined with the massive process of urbanization. In just 50 years, 5 decades, we have totally overcome the rate of urban development. 77% today in Europe, more than 82% today in Latin America. Today, this is at the center of our emission of the CO2 emissions. Our livability in cities is today unsustainable. We have today in cities the lifestyle as the most relevant contributor in CO2 emissions, the most important consumption in energy. We have in cities a strong process for generating wealth, and this is the most complex machine for generating poverty and social exclusion. We need to be aware that our world, based on the lifestyle in cities, is today unsustainable. We need to transform that for having really variable cities in the ecological way, viable cities in the economical challenge, equitable cities based for a real positive social impact. Cities are at the heart of the problem. Cities are the key of the solution. Climate change, biodiversity, urbanization are intertwined with the systemic impact. This image today, this is a permanent picture in all cities. The question of climate change is not a question only of temperature. This is a systemic impact for at the same time, troubles in our daily life, in our economical activities, and the damages in the economical different actions. My colleagues of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact published in the Nature Review in April 2024 an amazing paper for evoking two essential figures: the reduction by 18% of the usual turnover, just by the impacts of climate change. And second figure, $38 trillion in damages each year. This is not only a question of temperature, of loss of biodiversity, of troubles in our daily life. This is today a strong impact in the economical usual activities. And today we need to be aware of this systemic propagation of troubles. The real question today in our cities around the world is to answer this essential question. In what kind of a city we want to live in? We have a lot of different cities around the world. If we want to continue to live in a zonified city, segmented, fractured, mineral, with the traffic jams, pollution by CO2, pollution by fine particles. Okay, that's right. We could continue to live without a change. If we wanted to have a real livability based on a available, viable, and equitable city, we need to change. Don't forget this figure. Today, at this moment, we have in the world 20% of the world population that lives in a precarious house. This is really so essential to consider that to have a roof, four walls, a house, is not to live in a city. A roof, a four wall, is not enough for living in a city. For a long time, we needed to fight for having a roof and for a wall. But in fact, to live in a city is more than that. To live in a city is the social inclusion, the economical justice, dignity, to resist to populism, to racism, to have a good health, to be safe in the public spaces, gender equity, safety for human, to take care of fragile people, elderly people, children. In a nutshell, to have a real complete well-being. We need to be aware that housing doesn't mean living in a city. Jane Jacobs, the mother of our battles, she coined the living city concept. Jane Jacobs, I dedicated my latest book to Jane Jacobs. Jane Jacobs said, we need to live in a living city based on a real capability for people to be interconnected. She explained that to live in a city is to have public spaces with a great quality, to have an entertainment between the different generations, to have local commerce, to have local spaces for educational, cultural activities, to have in proximity a lot of services, medical services. Jane Jacobs said, the question for a city is to offer every time, everywhere, a multiplicity of choices. This is the reality. A city is alive when we have anytime, anywhere, lot of possibilities for accessing to different services, essential services, without having a car dependency. This is the sense of the 50-minute city. With my friend Mohamed Yunus, I applied his concept, a world of triple zero, zero carbon, zero poverty, zero exclusion. And recently, after meeting the Nobel Prize Paul Krugman, I took this concept awarded by the Nobel Prize, the new economical geography, the nearshoring. Instead of to have this globalization process, the factory, the world is China, the factory of semiconductors, South Korea, Taiwan, the factory of software in India, etc. We need to relocate jobs, to relocalizing jobs, to relocate economy, to develop local circuits, local short circuits, to use raw materials. This was the sense of the new economical geography proposed by Paul Krugman. And I proposed to join the new economical geography with a sustainable proximity, in particular in metropolises and in cities. I propose with the 15-minute city, with the different nicknames, with this happy polycentric proximity, to reinvent with this concept the new economical geography of sustainable proximity. I proposed proximity in the new economical geography. In this uncertain world, we need today to develop proximity as the backbone, as the new urban policy. This is the case of Hidalgo, to propose the proximity as the best of resilience. During the World Urban Forum in Cairo, I proposed this new term, proxilience, the mix of proximity and resilience for resisting to the different crises, climate change, new urban illnesses, to transform our urban life instead of to have the mineral city, traffic jams, overcrowded transportation, to resist to the different impacts. In fact, to change radically our urban style, because we have been continuing to live in the 21st century with the same lifestyle of the 20th century. The massive urbanization, the massification of cars, long distances, long commute, overcrowded building in the outskirts for the working class, segregation, zonification. This is the classical zonification. One place, one action. For that, if we will put a color for each one of our social needs, we will have the different color in a city. And for joining from one function to other functions, we need to spend time by a journey, a commute, in particular with the individual car. This is the traditional skyline in cities. The skyline in Paris, with La Défense, the biggest corporate district in Europe, built in 1961, but people live at the opposite. For that, we have transformed the banks of the Seine River into amazing motor highway, 300, 400 daily kilometers of traffic jams for joining from the east to the west. This is the skyline of Buenos Aires, the microcentro, the same situation. We have zonified for creating the central business district, the residential areas, the administrative place, the cultural districts. And we have generated this life with the permanent, constant stress, car dependency, fossil fuels, mass transportation at peak hours. This is the capital of the Ulaanbaatar, or capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, the lowest density in the world, a nomadic people that have transformed their lifestyle for living in the same condition. A corporate central districts, residential areas, etc. This is totally insane for the nomadic people that for a long time lived in a perfect harmonious between people, animals, plants, and nature. The 50-minute city, the X-minute city, the happy polycentric proximity, in fact, this is a way for changing radically our cities and territories, not only for fighting against economic inequities, but for fighting against these two new injustices generated at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. To fight against them, the spatial and the temporal injustices. To fight against them, the urban segregation, people don't live more and more far away, and the social exclusion, a lot of people that should spend more and more time just for commuting, and in consequences to lose our quality of life. We have been creating this social vulnerability, and this is our target with the 50-minute city. This is available in a lot of different cities, including in middle cities. This is the isochrone of Toulouse, in city of the south of France. In the historical center, the life is in blue. We have access to a lot of different services. 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers far away, the life is in red. This is just for sleeping. This is dormitory neighborhood without an access to the local services. This is the isochrone of this metropolis is Bogota, the capital of Colombia, 9 million of inhabitants. People live essentially overcrowded with the low income revenues in the popular district in the southwest, rather than people work. The essential of employment is at the opposite in the northeast. In the overcrowded district, popular district, for people with low income revenues in the west, people that don't have access to education. This is not the case for people that live in the wealth district. This is the incomes, the so low revenues for people that live in the southwest, in overcrowded district without education. This is the isochrone for, in yellow and red, more than 120 minutes for accessing to a job, education, health, and culture. Of course, the isochrone of mobility, this is an isochrone. We need to spend a lot of time for joining from the one side of the city towards another side of the city. Just for finishing, proximity, in fact, is to fight against gentrification. This is not only for reducing our CO2 footprint. This is not only for creating more social interaction. We need to change the economic model of cities. We have opened this discussion for generating the new urban model, for reconciling ecology, economy, and social impact, for generating nature in cities, biodiversity, renewable energies, but at the same time to relocating jobs, relocating economy, and to rewaving social links. We need to rebuild our cities block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, to develop this chronotopia, to mix our social functions, to live, to work, to supply, to care, to learn, to enjoy. This is the 6 social functions to mix for having, with this model, a polycentric organization, for mixing the different colors every time, everywhere, for having shorter low carbon distances with the mobility, habitability, for generating this rainbow of the high quality societal life. This is the 8 principles: proximity to essential services, organic density, mixed uses, high quality public spaces, efficient public transportation for interconnected city, active low carbon mobility, inclusivity, and ubiquity. We have today a lot of mayors around the world totally involved in this way. After the COVID-19, we have a strong transformation of the work style. A lot of people have access to remote jobs. We have developed this methodology. We have developed a lot of different tools, digital tools, geospatial data analysis tools, and we have customized proximity for different kind of profile that live in a city. Proximity is not the same for a teenager, for elderly people, for a woman with children alone, or a couple, for a pregnant woman, etc. We have developed a lot of different pedagogical tools for empowering citizens, for going in this social mixity. This is not only the functional mixity. Social housing is at the heart. Social housing is the key of the social categories. This is my city, Paris. We have voted the new master plan available for the next 10 years, of the next 15 years, for transforming our cities. This is the transformation 20 years ago, today. This was 20 years ago, today. This is the transformation of the public spaces. This is the transformation of the schoolyard, the school in front. This is the transformation with the economic model, with the proximity shops. This is the transformation of the social housing. Instead of to have the overcrowded social housing in the east and the Welsh people with low density in the east, to develop the conversion of commercial spaces in social housing with the mixed uses. This is the transformation in Paris with the development of the new centralities, to develop the social housing in the west of Paris as well, to develop 50% of social housing in the districts, mix it with 20% of middle class, 30% of the owner. This is the concrete transformation of cities and everywhere around the world. Thank you so much. I will start for a Q&A section.
Thank you, Carlos, for your lecture. I really enjoyed how you framed the theory of urban proximity, rather than focusing too much into the 15-minute concept, but rather to explain how we can better design our cities and our neighborhoods, also highlighting the key importance of well-designed and well-managed public spaces, because I believe this is really crucial for the implementation of the concept. So now, since we have received a lot of questions, I would like to invite Via for moderating this second part of the lecture. Via.
Yes, Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Professor Moreno, for this lecture. And we do have some great turnout. Just as usual, quick recap. We have very nice audience today from all around the world. We've seen people commenting and engaging from South America, North America, Europe, and MENA regions. So people are here from everywhere, and people from everywhere are interested in this topic because, of course, it's a very universal topic. Since we have a lot of questions, I will try to group them a little bit. Maybe one first question on theory, and then some other questions grouped together more about practice. So this first question about theory, it comes from our City Space Architecture member, Alessandro Rizzo, and he asks, maybe if Professor Moreno could explain a bit if he feels that the work of this 15-minute city builds on the Urban Task Force white paper and Richard Rogers.
Of course. I know very well. Yeah, of course, of course. Of course, Richard Rogers is one of the contributors. I presented this slide with the different names of different people. We have a lot of people. Of course, Richard Rogers proposed the new isochron for reaching different kind of activities in the different perimeters and distances. Given that the question is if I extend, yes, this was a source of inspiration, of course, yeah. But this is not the only. We have the time geography. Thorsten Agerstrand received the second Vautrin Lode Award. The Vautrin Lode Award is the Nobel Prize of Geography. The time geography is a really important contribution. The new urbanism in the USA, this is always present because this is the Congress for a new urbanism in the USA and in Canada. The new pedestrianism. And we have in Europe the process of the Brussels Declaration. We have a lot of different inputs, sociological, philosophical, economical, for developing this concept in the context of the 21st century. Richard Rogers, when he wrote Cities for a Small Planet, it was before internet. The Cities for a Small Country, it was before the smart devices, before the Internet for Things. We need to customize, to adapt, to take account of the modern context for revigorating this different contribution of a lot of thinkers and doers. But this is a good question. And of course, I advise people to read the contribution of Richard Rogers. That this is not only the theoretical construction, the theoretical concept. Richard Rogers was very involved for developing a modern, more inclusive architecture.
Great, thank you so much. And I think that leads also perfectly to the next question, which is going to be a mix of several questions that people have asked. And this is more about the implementation and practice. So for example, this is also our member Egle and also Pinar who are asking more about the implementation and how that works in different contexts. And so, for example, some of the contexts that were mentioned in the comments were maybe urban versus rural, what are the differences, but also the global south, these rapidly urbanizing mega cities. How could we as urban designers and architects start? Where do we start and what do we do? What's the recipe?
Of course. You have my screen, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the case of Milano with Giuseppe Sala, more based on infrastructure for the public space. This is so different in the USA. In Cleveland, the mayor, Justin Bibb, he has invested $200 million for fighting against racism because the black people is the working class isolated in the south of the city. We need to regenerate our cities in this case for having a more racial integration, a more economical inclusivity. Buenos Aires is more different because Buenos Aires need to fight against the consequences of the COVID-19, in particular the microcentro, to change the urbanistic code for having more mixed uses. And Buenos Aires, for example, has developed the more green street. This is the case of Mexico. If you have the Mexican audience, the mayor of Mexico, Clara Brugada, has implemented in the local Mexico with the utopias. The utopias son the decentralized short distance services. We have in Iztapalapa 18 utopias. This is the really innovative concept based on proximity. Well, this is the example of the utopias. Even in Africa, this is the middle city in Africa, 400,000 inhabitants. It is so different to implement in this kind of culture because the Arabic culture is so different. For that, we need to evoke the role, for example, of the mosque, the role of the places for generating public spaces, for having more gender mixity, because this is more complicated. This is in Melbourne. Busan, this is very interesting, the case of Busan. In Busan has developed a QR code. This QR code is present in different places. We have an apps. When you visit a place with a QR code, you have a card. With this card, you have the points for buying in the places, the shops that have the possibility for offering a discount. The 50-minute city in Busan is related to the new business model. Just I will show that, and you could imagine this transformation. You have this card. With this card, you have the apps. You are going to a place. You have the QR code. You take the QR code. My card is automatically increasing points. If during the day in my iPhone, I have more than 8,000 steps, my card will have a bonus of the point. With my point, I will go to the shops. If the shops are in proximity, you have 10%, 15% of discount. This is the new kind of business model in cities related to the different cultures. The question is really a very good question, of course.
Wonderful. Such a great initiative. And I think that also partially at least replies to our member Oscar's question, who was asking about what role can commercial enterprises have to ensure street vitality. Thank you. So maybe if we have time for one last question.
Yeah,
I think this is a very important one from Angela, because she asks, how can we implement 15-minute cities, but also avoid gentrification and displacement of the existing residents?
Very, very good question. I will respond with just one slide. Okay, where is this? Here. Gentrification. No. Okay. Up. Okay, gentrification. You have a map. This map is the social housing in Paris. Okay? You have the vertical line in the middle of Paris. in the east of Paris, in the northeast of Paris, 42% of social housing. Okay? This is the district, popular district, working class, low incomes, low revenues, immigrated people. In the west of Paris, in this district, for example, in the others, 2.2% of social housing. This is the gentrification that exists in cities. This is the case in Paris, and you could do the same exercise in cities around the world. With the 50-minute city, our target, in fact, is to rebalance the city, to break out the gentrification that exists today. This is totally abnormal to have 42% of social housing in this area and 2.2% in this area. With the 50-minute city, we have deployed a project for transforming the different single-function buildings for developing a more presence of social housing, for developing a most important densification with social housing in the district in the west of Paris. We have created, for example, this district, Clichy-Batignolles. We have created this new district in the west for just fighting against the gentrification. The new district, Clichy-Batignolles, this is the really so beautiful places. 50% of social housing, 20% of middle class, 30% of owners. This is the concrete transformation for fighting against gentrification. This picture is in the most select street of Paris, Rue Saint-Dominique, in the 7th district, 2.2% of social housing. With the 50-minute city, we have decided to buy this block, the former Ministry of Defense, and we have transformed with these beautiful blocks. We received the French Design Architecture Award for installing 250 families with low income, low revenues. This is in the most select street of Paris. We have implemented with the 50-minute city the development with the social housing in these places. This is not the theory. This is the concrete application. If we come to Paris, I will be your guide for visiting these places.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for questions and everything that you have shared in the chats. Of course, we didn't have the time to address all the questions, but I encourage you all to keep the conversation going, because I see that some of the projects that people have shared are very, very interesting and exciting. Yes, so we will close the Q&A with that. Thank you, Luisa. Back to you.
Thank you, Luisa. Yes. Thank you, Via. Greeting from Paris to the audience.
Yes, thank you for being with us today and for sharing this amazing concept. And we hope to meet you then in Paris in September for the conference, International Conference on Sustainable Urban Proximities. So we make a commitment to actually visit you in Paris in September.
Thank you again. 4th and 5th September, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. 4th and 5th of September. You are all invited, of course, all those who are interested to go into more details regarding urban proximity. Thank you again. And bye. Bye. So for those of you who have subscribed to our newsletter, or for those of you who have not yet subscribed to our newsletter, we are announcing in April regarding our next workshop that will take place in London in collaboration with the London Metropolitan University. So please subscribe to our newsletter to be always informed, or follow our social media, because the next workshop will be extremely exciting and focusing on public art and civic engagement. So thank you for joining and for attending this amazing lecture, and see you in April for the next keynote lecture. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.